the second episode of the Ultimate Self-Defense Championship, we were faced with an armed robber with a knife demanding we give up our stuff. Half the guys gave up their stuff, half the guys fought back. A lot of people ask me why I chose to fight back and why I didn't just give up the stuff if it was just a robbery. I'm gonna explain why, and I'm also gonna explain how I was able to be the only person who fought back that didn't get stabbed, and I'm gonna tell you exactly how I was able to kick that knife out of the guy's hand. But when should you comply, and will complying make you safer? Yeah, for us, it's like, I'm on my back, and there's a guy that outweighs me by 50 pounds sitting on top of me with his hands around my neck, punching me in the face. What do I do?
Get right with Jesus, bro, because you're about to meet him.
The kids call it Riz. You got the Riz, yeah.
What's the Riz?
You go Riz somebody up.
Oh, okay.
I think it's short for charisma.
Hey,
whoa,
give me your stuff.
Okay, man. Relax.
Everything you got.
I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give you my wallet. I'm gonna give you my phone. I'm gonna get it out of my pocket. I'm gonna give you everything. I got the keys. You can have the keys to my truck, man. You can have everything. That's all I got.
All right. What about that watch?
No, you can't have that watch, man.
Give me that watch.
You can't have that watch, dude. That's the sponsor of this video. Yeah, man, I guess I gotta take this off since we're training. Eric probably doesn't want this scraping across his face while we're fighting over this knife. Smith & Bradley watches are designed for active pursuits, harsh environments, demanding jobs, but they're also good. You could just wear them out to eat, like out to dinner. You don't have to be doing real tactical stuff, fighting ninjas or rescuing the president's daughter, like the bad dude that you are. A couple features that I like is this bezel that turns and it helps you time things out. Like if you need to keep track of like how long it's been since something. That's what this is for. Divers use it to tell how long they've been in the water. And it's also got the little glow, the numbers and everything glow, but not enough to give away your position in the dark. Some people think you don't have to wear a watch anymore because, you know, we have our phones all the time, but I travel so much now and I much prefer looking at a watch while I'm traveling than constantly pulling out my phone, because constantly having if you pull out your phone to look at the time, you're more likely to start looking at other things, and then you're more likely for someone to sneak up on you and rob you. I have a NATO wristband on mine. It doesn't irritate, and if it gets sweaty or it gets bloody, which you would think like, Mike, you don't get sweaty and bloody anymore. I get sweaty and bloody all the time. I'm not supposed to get sweaty and bloody anymore, but I do hard to hurt things with my friends, so. Smith & Bradley has the best warranty in the business. It's the unstoppable guarantee. It's a lifetime warranty for as long as you own this watch. So how this scenario played out is we had to have our eyes closed and our hands right here, and we would go 5, 4, 3, 2, and whenever we felt someone touch us, that's when the scenario began, and we didn't know what it was going to be or what they were going to do. And in this case, it was Aaron. Eric will be standing in for Aaron. Put a hand on my shoulder and the knife to my throat, and that's when the thing started. Now, some of the guys complied. They just gave it all up. We're going to talk about whether or not you should do that. I'm going to talk about why I didn't do that. I did not do that. I'll show you exactly what I did. The first thing I did is I pushed this away and I pushed this away. He kept that right back there, and just before he could even think to bring it up, I got on it and I went to what's called an outside 2-on-1, where we get here and here. And I use head position and extreme shoulder pressure to keep him from being able to bring this back. Now, what I did next, it's hard to see this, but what I did next is I played a little game with my hands where I kind of used this hand some and this hand some, but I started hitting him. And I was punching him, which keeps this hand occupied. Because what Eric should do, if this knife weren't the issue and we weren't punching each other and we were just wrestling and I had a Russian arm on Eric, he would take that hand right there, put his head in and get his own head position, and we'd fight over this. I don't want, and it actually doesn't even take a wrestler to know to do that. You know, like people will just push on your head. People get that. So to keep that hand out of play, I started hitting him and he started using that hand, and I was worried about a knife switch. So I started doing this when he had his hand a little lower at one point too, like down here, and I was doing kind of a thing like this. I think I might have had this, something like this, to stop that knife switch and fight that other hand. And he threw some kind of punches at me. He threw a couple little punches. They didn't do much because he can't really turn his hip because I'm behind the shoulder. The last thing I did is I threw an uppercut like this, and then I could feel him wanting to leave this clinch. You feel it when you get into a clinch. We've covered this a bunch in class. When we're clinched up and Eric starts trying to get away, I know that's what he's trying to do. So I put a hand here and said, whang. Now, why did that kick happen? That was a practice thing. Haters gonna say it's fake, but we do this all the time here. Anytime we feel a clinch coming apart, you'll know. He wants out. He wants out of here. He's getting beat up. Boom, bop. He wants out of here. I'm gonna let him go, and I'm gonna send that head kick reflexively. That's something we practice both for sport and for self-defense. When you feel a clinch coming apart, send the head kick. The kicking the knife out of the hand was just sort of a combination of me getting lucky and Aaron bringing this hand up because he probably felt what was coming too. Everyone saw me kick the knife out of his hand, and that was spectacular, right? He's got the thing up here, I kicked it, that thing went flying, right? The knife went flying, right? Everyone saw that. But what a lot of people didn't realize is that my toes with shoes on went right there and rattled his brainstem. So poor Aaron took a whole head kick, and all anyone's talking about is the knife. Shout out Aaron. He was awesome the whole time. One of the best bad guys that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. But why didn't I just give it up? Shouldn't you just give up the stuff?
Yeah.
Would you say?
I would, yeah.
You ever been robbed?
No.
You ever robbed anybody?
No.
I've talked to some people that have both studied robberies, and I have a friend who's been robbed more than anybody I know. I'm going to call him up and we're going to get their opinion. We're talking about armed robbery, someone presenting a weapon, like they have a knife or they have a gun, and they've shown it to you and told you that they're going to rob you, or you have to listen to them or whatnot. A lot of people say, well, you need to comply. You need to just do what they tell you and then they'll let you go. I know it's a very personal choice, but I'm hoping to get some clarity about if there's anything you've observed, because nobody's observed more stuff than you. Do you have any insight on how, if I was the victim of that, how I could form that decision? Like any tells or any trends or any like proclivities that these guys have that would tell me what the right move is?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I just taught a seminar on this, a 90-minute seminar on surviving an armed robbery with an evidence-based approach at the NRA annual meetings this last weekend. And we filmed it. It'll eventually go online. But, so the Bureau of Justice statistics say that if you fully comply in an armed robbery, now that's different than a kidnapping, different than, predatorial violence where somebody just wants to hurt you because like you offended them or something like that. Right. But they want your stuff. If you fully comply, you have about a 25% injury rate in an armed robbery. So full compliance, about a quarter of the time you get hurt in some capacity. If you physically resist, that goes down to about 18% chance of injury. If you are armed, so now we're thinking an armed robbery here, not necessarily a strong armed robbery, right? So, like a robbery by force or something like that. If they're armed and you have a firearm and you get the gun out and a shot off, that chance of injury drops to about 6%. So you're about.
But there's a big if in there. There was a big if in that one.
Yeah, if you get the gun out and if you get a shot broke, if you get a shot off, your chances of injury go down significantly. So the biggest thing that I always say, so the biggest stuff that comes into play is the key in an armed robbery is to wait your turn and take your turn. If you draw a gun when he's got his eyes on you and the gun on you, there's no way that you're going to get a gun out fast enough to win, okay? You can't beat his trigger press. It's just not possible. Because just that thought of, oh, okay, I got a gun on you, and if you freaking mess with me, I'm going to shoot you. It'll take him about 0.6 of a second to see, oh, he is messing with me. I do need to shoot him. Then program that action and make the action happen. About 0.5 to 0.6. So you're dead is the bottom line, unless you're like the greatest world champion shooter on his best day. And so for normal humans, no. However, when we say take your turn, if you're armed, then what we've seen again and again and again in real life encounters is that there are kind of cues, visual cues, because so when I do handgun training, we spend a lot of time, not a lot of time, but enough time with a timer, right? Shooter ready, standby, beep, and seeing how fast am I going to draw and get a shot in an A zone target, and we correlate those to actual real life. So what we actually see is if you have a 2.0 second draw to first hit from your place of concealment, then what that correlates to, what your go signal is the guy showing you the back of his head. So and he does that pretty regular in real life armed robberies because they're kind of like a cat on a hot tin roof, right? So they're not just going to look at you like this because they're always worrying about who else is around. So if he turns around like this and shows you the back of his head and you've got a 2-second draw, you're good. And he can't get back to you in time, recognize what's going on, program that action, and shoot you. And so, of course, you got to know you've got that cold all day, every day. That's a pretty easy standard. If you have a 1.5 second draw to first shot, then if he shows you his ears, so he doesn't have to turn his shoulders around, all he has to do is turn and look at, about a 90.
See, I knew you were the right guy to call. You got the statistics, the timings of these things. I knew that you'd be the right guy to call because I did the shit like in real life for 8 years, but that's all my anecdotal experience. That's me and my body with my mind in those situations. And I'll ask you this. You said that if a person chooses to fight back, they actually have the 18% chance of getting injured, whereas it's 25% if they comply. That would also, I would guess, it's hard to know, the people that chose to fight likely chose to fight because they felt, what I'm getting at is that's not a blanket, everybody will automatically move from 25 to 18 by fighting. If you
I think the people who choose to fight are, they tend to be in that category of high responder.
Yeah.
And those high, if you're a low responder, if you're not somebody who's like, I'm going to freaking get after this guy and I'm going to feed him this fucking gun. Yeah. I'm going to stuff this gun right up his taint, if you're not that guy, again, maybe your best bet is to comply. Maybe you're protecting your wife or your high special needs child or your elderly parents or something like that. And just go, okay, man, here, just take it, whatever, have a nice day. It's not a wrong answer. And only you in that moment. I mean, you know this from experience. You look in somebody's eyes and you go, okay, he's using that gun to intimidate me, but as long as I give it to him, he's going to go away. For the vast majority of armed robbers, they're cowards.
That's why they're doing what they're doing.
Right. They're doing what they're doing because they're cowards. And so the minute their force monopoly evaporates, they run like hell.
Force monopoly. That's a good one. I'm going to steal that one.
Yep. You can have
force monopoly. So it sounds like if you're going to comply. If
fully.
You're going to fight.
100%. Yeah. So one of the things that we see that really goes bad for people is like a half-hearted they kind of test the waters. Guys pointing a gun at you and you kind of bat it away a little bit or try kind of reach out a little bit. And that half-hearted compliance gets people hurt. That half-hearted resistance all the time. And it takes it from predatorial, this violence of resource predation, of give me your wallet. Now, if I paw at you or whatever, if I go, hey man, don't point that at me. Now it's social violence.
It becomes personal because you just told him you don't really think he's really going to do anything.
Exactly right.
Man.
But then we also see all the time, we see guys, if he comes and points a gun at you, if he then hits you with that gun, we see that pretty regular. Hey, give me your stuff. All right, man, not fast enough. And he bashes you over the head with a gun or he butt strokes you with the butt of the pistol or something like that. From there, pretty rare that he'll use it as an actual gun at that point. Not zero chance.
So that's a good sign. If he pistol whips you, he's less likely to shoot you.
Exactly right. If he pistol whips you with the gun, of course it's going to hurt. It's going to put a big lump on your noggin, but it's actually a good sign that he's probably not going to shoot you with it.
That's true. I've never shot anybody that I pistol whipped. That's true. Hey, are you going to be a professional about this and just take my stuff and do your job? You do your job, I do my job, we all go home? I'm counting on him to do what he's supposed to do, to honor the code, right? Yeah. But you don't know that. So I wanted to know if there was how can you tell? I called my friend Craig Douglas, who's been robbed more times than anybody I know, and see if he ever felt anything different. Armed robbery, someone points a weapon at you, says, give me your stuff, making that decision of whether or not to comply or to fight back. And do you have any insight on this?
Yeah, I mean, and again, my insight is subjective, but I was robbed 9 times in 2 years of street level undercover work. So let's frame that a little bit. Number one, I'm playing an addict or a crackhead, and mainly buying. This is during the crack epidemic, if you will. So most of these robberies were me buying small $40, $60 pieces of crack cocaine. Very common to see in that environment, to see addicts get robbed, and in 3 or 4 cases, I went back to that same person within a day after being robbed, after complying, and buy drugs from them.
Again.
Again. And a lot of people will ask me, why would you do something that stupid? That's crackhead and addict behavior.
You're really committed to the role.
Back then,
they're like, ain't no way this guy's a cop. There's no way he's a cop.
Back then, right, wrong, or indifferent, probably more wrong than right. There was kind of an expectation, if you did street level UC work, it was just rough trade. And if you wanted to work drugs and be safe, you put on a dog suit and went and talked to kids in schools. And that was just never appealing to me.
So of the times that you're robbed, sometimes I'm assuming they went off without violence. Some of those times they were violent. Did you have any inkling or any feeling based on your own tuition, skills, experience, where you knew which this was going to be, like before it happened?
Yeah, so I had 9 at gunpoint, and there was only one of those that I actually initiated and went violent. There were a couple, and most of these are pretty similar. And I hate to use the term business as usual robbery.
It's charge it to the game. It's part of the game.
But it is part of the game. It's part of the game in what I was doing. It's not uncommon to drive up, do a crack deal through the driver's side window, or have a guy get in the car with me. I do a solicitation, he does a solicitation, whatever, and his hand's going to disappear, right? Because that's where the drugs are. So you never know what was coming out in front of your face, when you're looking through the driver's side mirror, or you see a guy reaching back. Most of the time, it's a rock or bag or whatever. But a few times there were guns. It's real quick. Here, man, it's your world. Take the buy money. With a couple of young dudes, I got poked in the head with a gun, punched a couple of times, but it was just kind of like a educational beatdown.
They were just communicating, I'm serious. They're letting you know this is real.
Yeah, either they didn't want me around there. There was one actually that, a guy punched me 3 or 4 times and grabbed onto the car after snatching the money, and it kind of reached in the car, and I just floored it and took off. And I was kind of dragging, but that was the most like violent it got, and it was, and in a couple of cases, like I said, I went back like the next day, and everything was fine. It's like I took my ass beating and came back, and then they were cool with that. They respected that. And I bought drugs from them, made cases on them. So yeah, and out of the 9, there was only one, and that was a guy that put a gun to my head in the car. And I still don't know why I reacted the way I did, other than to say this one just didn't feel like the other ones. It didn't feel the same. There was a look, there was some odd energy that passed between us. I had my hands up and I was kind of moving away, and I went for the pistol. He followed me across the car. The gun discharged, hit the B pillar. I've lost some hearing that ear, but pinned me into the B pillar, and I wouldn't let go of the gun. And he punched me a couple of times and pinned me, wedged me pretty good. That was actually the event that kind of led to the creation of the clinch pick and my take on interior vehicle combatives, which I didn't have 30 years ago. I still struggle and try and figure out why that one felt different, and I still don't have an explanation. And also, you have a police background. Your mind will fill in shit that's not true. You know, that's the other thing. And we see that with witness statements all the time. Things that they actually believe, that when you look at video or actually better physical evidence, you see, well, that's just not true. It's not that the person's lying. So I distrust my recall there, just because
that's extremely stressful. There's a good, you ask guys after a shooting, post shooting, you ask a guy, how many rounds did you shoot? And he'll be like, 2 or 3. Right. He's got an empty magazine. He doesn't know what he did.
Yeah, same thing. But it just, people ask me about that one, and like you, they're like, why, how did you know, that was something you needed to not comply with?
Yeah.
And my only answer is it didn't feel like the others. Now there's some objective things I think that you shouldn't comply with and the citizens shouldn't comply with. A secondary crime scene, getting
Right.
moved from a primary crime scene to a secondary crime scene.
Yeah, like get in the car, come around the corner.
That always ends in severe injury, sexual assault, death, whatever. So that would be me personally. If I were going to be moved, that's a big one. Depending on the level of interest, if I was co-located with a loved one, or somebody I was responsible for, that may be another indicator of, I'm not going to comply. I know everyone wants the realm of tactics and decision making to be linear, like algebra.
Yeah, they want it codified. They want a curriculum. If this, do that. If that, do this.
Right. They're used to being trained that way. It's very logical. It's very it's progressive, and it's formulaic. And that's really not what this stuff looks like at all, at least in real life, in my experience. And again, my experience is not absolute, certainly not. And there are people who have different experiences. But that murky realm, and that's another reason I'm a big fan of quality, immersive, experiential training that really focuses on ambiguity and allowing people to make the best decisions that they can, with several options.
I think what I'm landing on with all this is that there are people that think in their mind, no, you should always comply. You should always comply. Just give him what he wants. That's the best defense. And then there's people who are like, screw that. I'm going to fight back no matter what. I'm not going to be a victim. And I think where we need to get people is to realize not only is this complicated, but it's impossibly complicated. And we have someone who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and an expert in you, and you can't even say like, I just felt funny. It's far more complicated and far more personal than you think. You got two people who are probably going through the most stressful time of their life, and they just met 6 seconds ago. That's pretty complicated.
Yeah, I think the first step is getting the self-defense community away from always and never.
Yeah.
Always fight back, never comply. It's just
that's not how real life works. That's not how anything works.
It's not binary and formulaic. It's not. There's a whole lot of gray. It's murky. It's messy. I'm a big believer in developing your social literacy and your emotional intelligence, broadening, your sphere of knowledge. Yeah, I mean, you've heard me in class talk about maybe, if you're scared of homeless people, and they freak you out and it makes you like want to carry a gun, maybe what you should do is go work a soup kitchen, stuff like that. So I'm a fan of making effort to become better adjusted. If you're going to carry a gun and practice self-defense skills, in public space. That's just me.
We see that in these like public freakouts and these like the Karen videos and the stuff like that, where it's two people talking to each other and one of them is maybe a bigger asshole than the other, but they're both being assholes. And it's like, have you two ever talked to a person that you don't know? Have you ever? You just need reps. It's no different than an MMA fight or a karate fight or a jiu-jitsu match. You just need tons of reps of being in the situation and knowing when is the time to do my thing and when is it not. Because I can't tell you when to bail on a submission. Like you only you know if you're losing the submission or not. But if you're gonna bail on it as early as you can. Or if you want to finish it, try to finish it as early as is practical, you know. And I think all we can do, I think you're absolutely right. I think we put more people in situations where they have to practice this and just get reps of it. And then maybe, hopefully, they'll feel more comfortable when it comes.
I think your comparison there is really adroit. Only you know when you should bail on a submission, right? Nobody can tell you that, right?
Yeah.
Nobody can teach you that. You have to experience it with Maton, you know,
yeah. And be wrong a bunch.
And be wrong. Yeah. And be wrong. Yeah, absolutely.
I wish I could give you a more definitive answer, but only you will know. Or hopefully you never do. Hopefully you never find out. Hopefully you never are in this situation. But what we want to get across is that stop thinking always and never. It's not always fight back. It's not always comply. You have to factor a lot of things in. How tough are you? How smart are you? How slick are you? How much charisma do you have? How serious does this guy seem? How are you judging that? You spend a lot of time around criminals? I have. I kind of know. I kind of know when they're serious and I kind of know when they're full of it. So I got a guy that has seen more robberies than anyone that I know. And I got a guy who's been robbed more times than anyone I know. I want to get a guy that's robbed more people than anyone else I know. Shout out to Smith & Bradley. Links in the description below. Make sure you go click that link and check out Smith & Bradley. It helps support the channel. If you want more fitness tips, self-defense techniques, gear reviews, as well as concepts and principles that make you hard to hurt, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications.